Good morning, everybody, and thanks for watching. So, I'm going to finish just some points in Paul's letter to the Colossians. And in chapter 2, Paul says that we are complete in Him. In verse 10, he's speaking to the body, and he says, we're going back to verse 9 a little bit. For in Him the entire complement of the deity is dwelling bodily, and you are complete in Him, not apart from Him. So those two words, in Him, have significant meaning, and Paul goes on to explain what this means a little bit in the rest of this chapter. But to paraphrase, being in Him, in Christ, being completed in Him, means that we are in Him, participating in what Christ did, not apart from what Christ did. What did Christ do? Well, Paul goes in to say it here in verse 12 and explains our relationship to what Christ did. In verse 12 of chapter 2, being entombed together with Him in baptism. So that's how we're in Him. We're being entombed together with Him in baptism. There's no water baptism or other type of baptism that's separate from Christ that we have to do in order to get to Christ. The baptism occurred when we participated, when Jesus Christ was entombed, when He died, was dead, was entombed, was resurrected. Us participating in that, being entombed together with Him. That's the one and only baptism. And it's in Him, as Paul just described in the previous verse. It's not apart from Him. Religion teaches that you have to get baptized, whether it's whatever tradition they belong to. Get baptized as a baby, or once you become a believer, you have to get water baptism, or this or that, or whatever their rules are. That's separate from Christ. That's not in Him. That's doing it in order to get to Him. And here Paul's explaining that we are complete in Him, and the baptism is in Him. We were baptized 2,000 years ago when we were entombed together, when Christ brought us into the tomb with Him. And that's all in Him. There's nothing that has to be done to get into that, because he previously stated, Paul did, that we're complete in Him, not apart from Him. Everything that religion does when they teach salvation, they say you have to get that salvation apart from Christ. You're not complete in Him. You have to do this. You have to make a faith choice. You have to follow this rule. You have to maintain the faith by acting this way. You have to follow the law to be righteous. That's all. If you don't do it, then you're on the outside. You're apart from Christ. You have to do it in order to get to Christ. Well, that's the complete opposite of what Paul is teaching here, because he's saying we are complete in Him. How are we complete in Him? We're complete in Him by His death, His entombment, and His resurrection. That's what does it. That's it. That's all. Anything on the outside is apart from Christ. Everything we are, everything we have, the righteousness we have, is in Him, not apart from Him. So being entombed together with Him in baptism, in whom you were roused together also through faith in the operation of God, who rouses Him from among the dead. So he talks about, circumcision here, and the fact that our flesh has nothing to do What we do or what we don't do has nothing to do with what Christ has completed for us in him. That's his reference to circumcision here. Again, reiterating this in verse 13, he vivifies us together jointly with him. This is us being vivified, made alive beyond death, jointly together with him, with Christ. Again, we are not vivified apart from Christ. That is what religion teaches. This line right here, he vivifies us together jointly with him, disproves everything that religion and Christianity teaches. Because they say we are not made alive beyond death. We are not vivified. We are not saved or made righteous together jointly with him, with Christ. No, no, no. They do not say that. They do not teach that. They teach that you have to act a certain way, do something in order to get what Christ did. They say that if you don't do that, if you don't do something separate from God, if you don't make that independent act or that independent choice or follow whatever their religion says you have to follow, then you are on the outside and you're going to an eternal hell. And unless you do the right things, unless you're smart enough to stop sinning and do what needs to be done according to whatever their rules are, then and only then will you be able to participate in what Christ did. So you're on the outside. You're not together with Christ. You're not jointly vivified with him. You're on the outside unless you perform an independent act from God and choose Christ or believe or do whatever they say you have to do. Then you have earned your way to receive what Christ did. That's not what Paul is saying here. He says he vivifies us together jointly with him. So we're in what Christ did. Christ was vivified. He went to death. He was dead. He was entombed, and he was resurrected. And he pulls all of creation with him and vivifies us together with him. There's nothing separate here. We are Christ. We are participating and identifying with everything that he did. We in spirit were entombed, and we in spirit are already resurrected and a new creation. Yeah, we haven't experienced it in real time yet, but in spirit, that's what we are. And eventually, in real time, all creation will be filled up with all that God is, because all creation participates and is vivified together jointly with him, in him, not apart from him. It's all about what he did. And again in chapter 3, Paul says in verse 3 and 4, "For you died, and your life is hid together with Christ in God." Our life is with Christ in God. It's hid together with Christ in God. So that whenever Christ, our life, should be manifested, then you also should be manifested together with him in glory. So we are hid in Christ. It's like a container. There's a container, and then which is Christ, and we are in Christ. Everything he did, we did, because we identify it with the death, entombment, and resurrection. So everything on the outside cannot affect what was accomplished in him, because when we say we're in him or we're complete in him, what that means is that everything that he did, we did. Everything that we are is him. And everything on the outside cannot affect what Christ has done, because everything we have is in him. And that's the beauty of what Jesus Christ has done for us all. In my next video, I'm going to get into First and Second Thessalonians a little bit. I did make a video a few days ago. It was more of a political video, and used way too many cuss words and used way too many sensitive terms, so I know it would have got blocked. So I'm going to redo it, try to use better language in it when we get into Thessalonians here, talking about the snatching away and what's going on in this world a little bit. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.